Hello, we're here with another edition of Elephants in the Practice Room. I'm Sarah, and I'm here with my good friend, Emily King, today.
Hey,
Emily and I, first of all, Emily, where are you in the world?
I am in northern Idaho near Coeur d'Alene.
Northern Idaho. Okay, great. And Emily and I know each other because we are both clinical Pilates instructors. We have both gone through Breathe Education's diploma of clinical Pilates, and we talk about clients that we work with. We talk shop a lot, and I thought she'd be a really great guest to talk about musculoskeletal pain, particularly in musicians, because although Emily is not a musician technically, right? Have you ever played an
I
instrument?
mean, I played the flute and the piano. I did
Okay, well,
when I
you're
was
a
younger,
musician.
when I was younger. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, well, you definitely are still a musician, but said your sisters both played pretty intensely, right?
Yeah, my sisters both played the
Growing up.
violin. They studied the Suzuki method. And so, I will never forget starts with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on a violin mistake when they're 4 years old or five or whatever, however old they're allowed to start.
So what happened? Why didn't you go through the Suzuki method on violin?
So by that point in time, I had already played the piano and played the flute, and my parents were just very adamant, like, "You must play a musical instrument." But there's 11 years between me and my sisters. And so
Okay,
by that point, I was off into becoming a dancer and a professional dancer. And that's the path that I went, and my mom found the Suzuki method and teachers, and so that's just how my mom guided my 2 younger sisters, where my brother and we played piano, and the girls didn't.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, oh my gosh. Okay, so I think I knew you were a dancer, but you were a professional dancer?
So, I mean, we can that was my dream, right? So
Okay, okay.
I did dance with some, I would say, more semi-professional companies in the Bay Area, and then my whole dream was to move to Los Angeles, and I did. I moved to Los Angeles, and I studied there, and I did some auditioning there, but at that point, actually, I had so much pain in my body that
Mm.
I had to quit dancing, so never made it to the professional place that I wanted to be, and and then that's actually what got me into Pilates, was because I had so much chronic pain in my body.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, Emily, yet another reason why I never really knew this. I legit never knew this, you guys, that this is how Emily got into Pilates initially, because this is just another reason why we get along, is because essentially this is why I also got into Pilates as well. I was searching for some sort of exercise, something that was going to help me with my physical pain while I wasn't playing the harp. And Pilates was kind of magical that way. And you said you had told me about your sisters too. They weren't able to progress anymore due to pain. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. They both were absolutely beautiful and I think brilliant musicians. They played well into their teenage, even adult years. And then, particularly one of my sisters, she developed severe neck, shoulder pain. She had chronic migraines, I don't know, maybe even some ear things going on with her on that side, but she experienced so much pain in her body from playing the violin so much that she had to eventually quit. She had decided that she chose that just because the pain was so great for her.
Yeah, yeah. So did she find a way to get rid of the pain, or was it just when she stopped, the pain stopped?
No, she still kinda deals with some of the pain, and she kinda went down a little bit of a different path as far as her healing went. Big sister doesn't I was like, "Let's do some Pilates," and she's like, "Meh, I don't want to."
Oh, didn't want to do it.
But I do know she did try, and she has done some yoga, and she is on a healing path for her body involving many things such as, nutrition and sleep and reducing stress and all these kinds of things. And I would not say migraines is due to playing the violin. I do not necessarily believe that those two things are correlated, but she was playing the violin since she was 4 or 5 years old. She developed migraines at age 7. That could be an entirely separate issue, but due to some overlapping health concerns, she chose to give it up,
Mm.
which I think was actually really hard for her because she also taught violin. She taught little ones,
Hmm.
for a while. So, but, I think a whole other conversation for a whole other day could be, the identity of a musician, right? Just like
Oh yeah.
develop the
Oh yeah.
identity of being a dancer. If you can't do it the way that you want to do it, sometimes you just give it up all the way.
100%. Yeah. And then when you give it up, you've got an identity crisis going on.
That's right. Yeah.
You're so right. Yeah, you're so right. So, okay, so kind of go back to your story. What happened with you and your dancing? You said you gave it up due to the chronic pain.
Yep. So I was training a lot when I got to Los Angeles. I mean, I had always trained as a kid and growing up. I mean, I spent hours and hours in the studio. That's what I loved and that's what I did. When I finally got to Los Angeles, I was in my 20s, and by then you're starting the decline as a dancer simply because of your age a little bit. But I was having some chronic pain, and no idea what it was, right? It was just at that time, I was taking a lot of ibuprofen and just pushing through, but I know now that, I didn't have the strength that was required or the know-how to really condition my body to be able to do the dancing or the actual movement that I wanted to do. The conditioning wasn't there, right? It was,
Mm,
and this was, back in the 90s, like, I was on the West Coast. It's not like Pilates was very known then,
mhm,
very minimally, if at all. So, it just got to where I just saw, the competition was real, and I was like, "My body just cannot do this like
mhm,
everyone else is doing it." And in my own mind, I just was kind of like, "Well, if I can't do it like that, then I just don't wanna do it." And I
mhm.
ended up having to go into physical therapy, and it was my
Do
phys
you mind saying do you mind saying what exactly was, was it your foot? Was it your hip? Was it
Yeah, it
like
was,
a bunch of
it
stuff?
was my whole low back and my sacrum area was
Got you.
my primarily where the issue was, and I did have some issues with my hip too. I think that I had some misalignments, things like that, but, like, when it was basically chronic low back pain.
Mm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. And in our program we learned a ton about chronic low back pain and how it affects so many people. But the good news is it does heal, right?
Yep.
And it's not the end for people. It's not the end for people in their career, in their daily life, in their movement. We help people with that in these exact situations right now, right? We help clients all the time with who are dealing with one of these things or another chronic pain. So, okay, so tell me, I'm sorry, I cut you off. You did some PT, physical therapy?
Did some PT, and they actually gave me a diagnosis of sacroiliac dysfunction,
Mhm.
which I
Okay.
believe we learned kind of
Yes.
sorta is, I don't know, not
Yeah.
really a thing.
It's not really a thing. Yes,
Not
not
really.
really a thing.
It's
I
kinda
too. Hey, Emily, this is just another reason why we are, like these soulmates or something, is I too got an joint dysfunction diagnosis. I had gone to PT for various things. And yeah, I was
Yep,
told the same exact thing.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
So the stuff that they gave you to do, okay, what else did they tell you? SI, what else?
So, just SI dysfunction, so sacroiliac joint dysfunction, and they sent me to physical therapy, and luckily, I went to a physical therapist who said, because I blasted through the PT exercises, like,
Hmm.
it was like bridging and whatever, the traditional PT things that they give everybody, really.
Sure. Yeah.
And she said, I think that I'm not going to be able to make a difference with you actually with what you have going on. And I think you need to go try Pilates. Just go do that. And I was like,
It's pretty great that she
okay.
told you that.
Yeah. And,
Huh.
and I very specifically remember too that, when I was filling out my physical therapy forms when I first got in there and they were like, they asked this one question. What level of pain are you willing to live with?
Mm,
Was this question. And I remember, I'm in my knees and I'm looking at that and I'm like, I'm, 23 years old, 24 years old, maybe like 0. I don't want to have any pain. Like the answer is 0,
yeah,
And so I just remember that question so vividly, and it was like, well, and I knew in that moment, like, they were asking this question, like, basically, "How committed are you?" Like, "How committed are you
yeah.
to doing what it takes to heal your body?" Basically. And
Hmm, hmm.
so, I was like, "Well, I don't want any pain at all, so I will do, whatever I gotta do." I mean, as a 24-year-old, I don't really know anything beyond that other than, like, I'll do whatever you tell me. And,
Right.
um and so at that point in time when she said, "Go check out Pilates," I was like, "Okay," and I literally went into a Pilates studio and I took a mat class to begin. That was my first introduction. I took a mat class and, saw all the equipment in there, and I just was like, "Okay, sign me up." Like, I just signed up for teacher training, like, a week later because I thought, well,
Really
I was already a dance teacher, a dance choreographer. I had done a yoga certification as well, so I'd been teaching yoga for a bit.
cool.
And I thought, well, I'm already a teacher, so I might as well just learn how to teach this and I'll just rehabilitate myself in the process. And that's what I
Love it.
so
Wow.
yeah, so I went through teacher training and within my teacher training process, I rehabilitated myself and I can honestly say I've been pain-free ever since.
Serious. Wow. That's I mean, that's remarkable that you never had a flare up, you never had anything.
I mean, sure, maybe a little teeny flare up, sure, of course,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
go do something
Okay, stuff
crazy
here
and
and
you're
there.
like, "Man, I really worked my back,"
Yeah.
like, whatever.
Uh-huh.
But I
Uh-huh.
also was very mindful I wasn't going in and I was not dancing like I had been before, but
What does that mean?
I was learning so much more about my body that I was like, but if I tried to move it in this different kind of way, then I don't know. Like, I think I had the hope of maybe someday I could dance again. I didn't in the capacity that I wanted to, right? And like I said, identity, that's a whole other, like, podcast, right? But, but even now, I've gone and seen some chiropractors, or I've done some other, like, alternative, modalities or whatever, and my
Mhm.
last diagnosis was I have degeneration in L4-S1, and I would never know. I don't feel
Right.
I have no pain there now,
Yeah.
you know?
That's wonderful. Well, and how often are people walking around and we all have degeneration. It's just we're all living, breathing, and using our body, right? So over time, it does wear. That doesn't mean it can't regenerate, right? Doesn't mean it can't, heal and be strong and be capable. So I think that's the real message we're trying to get across today. So talk to me. We kind of touched I mean, talking like we've been talking about pain, 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 but there really is I think it's important to distinguish what pain really is and what injury really is, right? What is pain versus injury? Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like how we kind of think about it now, knowing what we know?
Yeah. So with pain, if we have acute pain or like an injury, right? Something happens. There's a trauma that happens to the body, right? You get in a car accident and you have a broken body part, or you fall downstairs, you sprain your ankle. Okay? So we have an injury that has created pain in the body. And then we have what I would call chronic pain. We have pain in our body that maybe we don't really know why. We don't fully know why it's there. I didn't have any sort of injury as a dancer. I didn't I didn't experience that, but I just developed this pain over time, maybe from repetitive use, overusing, or a movement pattern that was happening on a regular basis that wasn't ideal,
Hmm.
maybe. I also can say that being in my early 20s, moving to Los Angeles by myself, working literally, like, no kidding, living off of top ramen or,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever, like, it was very stressful, and so
absolutely.
stress also can create pain in the body, and it just presents itself in different ways.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's so much to unpack there, what you just said. First of all, pain. First of all, we know that when we're in pain, it's not always it's important to know that it's not always problematic, right? So a great analogy is to think of it like a fire alarm in your house, right? The smoke alarm, smoke detector, right? So it goes off when you make something on the stove and there's a lot of smoke, right? You burn something on the stove. Then it also goes off when there's a legit fire your house is going to burn down, right? So the same alert is created and we can think of that kind of in the body. Your finger could hurt because, you've got a hangnail that you pulled off, right? Or it could hurt because you just sliced it with a knife and half your finger's hanging off, right?
Right.
They can both cause pain, but one is way more life threatening than the other, or maybe not life threatening, but important to address at this moment and needs attention now versus the other one that just don't worry about it, it'll go away. So sometimes I think we can be so hyper vigilant when we have pain and oh no, and then that causes that spiral in your head to go into the stress zone and to be worried about the pain and then to guard your body and then to not actually use the body part that is in pain. And then that creates a whole other cycle that just, causes more issue. The other thing I wanted to kind of distinguish with was you said with injury, we've got, trauma where you fall down the stairs or get in a car accident. But then with musicians and or dancers, artists in general, we can often become injured because we do too much too soon,
Mhm.
right? Those are the two ways we can be injured, right? It's either something happens all of a sudden and it's an accident, or you do too much too soon. The same thing where go to the gym and so often everybody starts up in January, right? With their new me, like new year, new me routine. They go in, they, do their weightlifting and they do way too much weight 3 days that week. And then they're just toast, right? They pull something, they're done, right? They their head's in the right place. They've got the right motivation and like attitude about it all, but they ultimately end up becoming injured because they do too much too soon, right? Rather than it being a slow, gradual process and being consistent and little by little, grading what you're doing and taking it up over time so that your tissues can handle it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So when we work with clients, we are trying to do you know, to stay away from these two, obviously, so that we don't create injury. And it's really important for musicians to understand that, if you're doing this in a thoughtful way, if you're essentially living your life practicing in a thoughtful way, you can prevent injury. But another really handy tool that we like to talk to people about is strength training specifically, right?
Yeah.
So, Emily,
Yes.
can you talk a little more about that?
Yes, and I've been teaching Pilates for a really long time. Have experience working and doing, PT, but also working in. I worked in a PT clinic for a little while, and it was kind of funny. This was right before in our. It was right in the beginning of our clinical program, and
Hmm.
my wife was having some shoulder pain, and she's not a musician, but she has a desk job and she is repeatedly, on the computer, whatever. Anyway, she was having shoulder pain and I was like, okay, let's do some of these um exercises, with a TheraBand, just kind of, like basic things that you would find in Pilates, but also that you would find in physical therapy, just very basic. And we talk about graded exercise, starting at a very low load, very low weight or low tension type movement, and you gradually grow from there. But it's also finding the right tension and load for where the person is at based on their pain or injury, right? Finding this place of where they can be that isn't too much too soon, but also is just enough to
Right.
actually make a difference, right? And so I had her starting out with some TheraBand stuff, and she was doing it. She was doing it, and she was just like, "It is not getting better," you know?
Hmm.
And then we, were going through our course and stuff, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, she actually needs to do more strength training than
Hmm.
this." other thing. So, I gave her, I said, okay, well, we're going to just up that load just a little bit. We're going to start doing some strength training type exercises. And literally, like in a week, her pain is gone.
Amazing.
I have her doing these little cute TheraBand things, and she's just like, what is this?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. It's not doing anything, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Mhm.
I had her step a little bit more into some strength stuff and loading her muscles appropriate to her body and appropriate to the movement, the range of motion that she could do, right?
Mhm.
Working within a range that wasn't any more painful. Maybe there was a little bit, but not dangerous, not a bad thing, because a lot of times people
Yeah.
avoid.
Right. Right.
And literally, like, within a week or so, she was just like, "Oh, yeah, I'm good." Like, she can move her arm around, and she's like, "It doesn't really hurt anymore," you know? Dealing with her, it's not
Amazing.
perfect, but, like, dealing with the range of motion that she does have, you know? And
Right.
so, anyway, so when you were talking about that graded exercise, really, finding that sweet spot and not doing too much too soon, because that can cause more, stress or injury on that part, but
Mhm.
just finding that right recipe and
Yeah.
progressing from there. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important what you just said, because so often we don't, as musicians or dancers too, right? You don't, part of your training, whereas like a football team, part of their, or a swim team, part of their training session is, going into the gym and lifting weights, doing that traditional strength training. And as artists, we don't consider that as part of our training session, which I think we should.
Absolutely.
Think it's essential, it should be an extension of our practice, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's just going to improve what you then go and do in your art,
Yep.
and in then your everyday life. I've played a gig over the last 3 days, and I can thankfully say when I was loading and unloading, my harp into the car, I'm like, I mean, I kind of stopped and I thought, man, this is nothing anymore. Like this used to be a huge ordeal for me, and now it's like it's no problem, and that's just thanks to all of the outside training, right? All of the strength that's being built, and the endurance is improved. Obviously, strength training can improve your endurance, if you're doing it in a certain way. Anyway, all right, so we could say so much. The other thing is it is part of the physical activity guidelines, right, put out by ACSM,
Yes.
American College of Sports Medicine. So they say if you're taking every major muscle group to fatigue, 2 to 3 times a week, that is getting you there. That is meeting your physical activity guidelines in the strength capacity, and it's going to improve your all-cause mortality. Right? It's just going to cause any chance for dying goes straight down when you're doing that.
Yeah.
You
You'll
know?
live longer.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah, and you're sorry.
it reduces stress.
It reduces stress incredibly, which what kind of ties back to what you were saying of, stress can cause more pain, right? They are interconnected. And a great way to think about that is the cup of resilience model that we know very well. Emily and I learned this, and I think it's a really, really good visual. You imagine a cup and things that tax you through your day. Imagine each of those things is a liquid, and those things go into the cup, and then over time, over the day, over the week, over the month, that cup gets more and more and more and more and more full, right? And eventually it's going to overflow, right? Unless you do something to take the liquid out. And in order to take the liquid out, you would do things that would counterbalance the stress. So that's going to look different for everybody, right? It's going to look different. Maybe for one person, it's making time to read. Another person, it's time to go outside. But the most effective way to beat the stress cycle is to move minimum of 20 minutes a day, right? Some kind of movement, even going for a walk,
Yep.
is really going to help that stress level. When the cup overflows, it often shows up as physical pain. And so this is how it's easy to see that the stress and the pain go hand in hand, right?
And even more so, right? If we think about our sleep, right? If we're not getting enough sleep,
Mm,
it causes more stress,
hmm
and it just keeps kind of going around and around. And when we move our body, we're not only just moving energy through, right? We're moving
hmm
energy through our bodies, but we're getting that, we're moving our bodies in a way that we can just, I mean, however it is, right? Whether you are dancing in your kitchen or shaking or whatever, but really we have, there is science that says like strength training, specifically building muscle and
Hmm.
getting stronger, is really what is going to create more longevity in our life. And with
Hmm.
that, it's not just also, I think about for musicians too, it's not just strength, with that mobility training as well, so that your body can move
100%.
optimally to play the instrument that you're playing, right?
Hmm.
To
Hmm.
dance, to have the strength to sit or stand for long periods of time. I mean, I've gone to concerts, right? I mean, how long are concerts?
Hmm.
Hours?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So one I just did was 2.5 hours. It was like, man,
Two and
brutal.
a half hours holding
It's
your
long.
body in particular
Yeah.
positions and sitting or whatever, so, like, to have the strength and endurance to be able to do that is only gonna help, you be able to play better, but, like, the benefits of, reducing stress in your body and getting stronger to live a longer life, you know,
And a longer career,
longer career.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Career.
Yeah, yeah, the longevity. It goes hand in hand. It's essential. I know that now the dance industry does promote Pilates like very pretty regularly, right?
Yeah.
For their dancers. But the music industry is still not getting this message across. We still need some kind of physical movement in our day, and we need strength specifically. So this is kind of a good point to make is, you don't have to go to a traditional gym to get this strength training in, right? You don't have to do Pilates. And in fact, I don't know if we want to open this can of worms, but Pilates is not often known for mega strength gains, right?
Right. It's how you do it. The
Yeah.
key is
There are different ways to do
yeah.
Pilates these days.
Yep. I mean, yeah, it's about knowing, having an instructor or teacher, trainer who understands that progressive loading and understands loading the muscles, and, whether you're using the reformer as a tool for that or your own body weight as a tool for that, or you have to go pick up weights or a kettlebell as a tool for that. The result or the focus is bringing all major muscle groups as close to failure.
And so often, like you're saying, in time, you do need to get some, external force, weight. But when you're starting out, it's easy. You can start at home, body weight stuff. I mean, you're very quickly going to be able to make strength gains if you just start doing, a simple push, pull, squat, right? And it doesn't have to take long either. That's the other great thing.
Right, just drop down and try some push-ups, see how that goes.
Yeah. Or don't even do it. Just do it off the counter at home, right? Like, see
Counter.
how many of those you can do. For many of us, that's enough, right?
Yes.
So, well, thanks, Emily. I'm so glad that we talked about this today. Anything else you wanted to add about all of this?
Man, it's such a great conversation.
It is.
I would say it's definitely the one thing that was missing for me as a dancer. I see it was the one thing missing for my sisters as violinists. And I see it all over, even just, right?
What's that? Not happening around here.
It's just like, oh my gosh, just simple things like I'm cleaning out my garage, and it's like
Hmm.
there's boxes and there's stuff
Yep.
that,
Yep.
that I gotta do. And I'm like, man, I notice a huge difference when I'm doing my strength training 2 to 3 times a week from when I'm
Yep.
not. And
100%.
and if there's something that happens, at least in my own mind and in my own body, when I can go pick up that heavy box, right? It's not just about being able to do push-ups or pull-ups or whatever,
Right.
right? It's really
Yeah.
about being able to do your life and do the things you love, right? You love being a musician and playing your music. Like, why not do what we got to do so you can do it for as long as possible? Being able
Mm,
to pick up your kids or grandkids or, go for a bike ride or whatever, just having the strength to be able to do the things you want in life is gonna make you happy, right? So in the end, what do we all want as humans is to be happy. And
100%. Yeah.
so, doing those strength training, taking that on as something important in our lives can just benefit in so many ways.
Thank you so much, Emily. It's such a great combo. And we hope everybody out there has a great rest of their week, and we'll catch you soon. Bye.
Bye.